do discernment, and how this in turn helps us in spiritual direction. Okay? Now, before I do anything more, is there any question about the general direction of what I'm doing here? Okay, let's go. Now, Mary, in this discernment process, the one in the exercises turns and says, Our Lady, I've been thinking seriously as this prayer has been going on, that there's so much in my life right now as I'm moving, looking at my sinfulness and my need to be more resolute in the way I am a loving person in this one life that I have to lead, but I don't have it all clear yet, and I need your accompaniment and your help. I don't know what people say, but that would be one of the ways of a moment of coming to understand the way sin has impacted one's life. And that's the introduction that Ignatius has to the triple colloquy. Remember, it's going to come up at other times, but one of the first times is this understanding of what sin has meant for me. Now, Mary, in that engagement between the one making the retreat and God, is both mystical and ethical. What do we mean by that? By mystical, I mean Mary helps us to know how God should be regarded, and God should permeate the way in which I understand who I am. That's okay. And ethical means that out of this understanding of the presence of God in my life, what do I do about that? What are the decisions I make? What will become gradually what I would call my non-negotiables? The things in my life that give me anchor, direction, root. All right. Mary represents that humanity that is free enough to allow the Spirit to overshadow her desires, consciousness, so that discernment can take place. Okay. The picture that we have of Our Lady is not that she was a full-fledged mystic from the beginning of her human life, but that she was a person open to whatever the reality would be. John Paul II, in an encyclical on the relationship between philosophy and theology, said that Mary is a lucid image of transparency. What does that mean? It means that she shows us what it is to be totally open as a person. And that openness of a person is to be in some way or other what she typifies as the handmaid of the Lord. Now, we have a lot of cultural overtones, and we want to move that furniture to one side of the room. That handmaid can mean that you're like a lackey or a slave. There are overtones of that, just as there are Jesus talking about his own sense of emptying himself to become a slave. But the meaning really is, I am simply open to whatever the mystery of God reveals to me, for me, as something that's going to be, what? Radically fundamental to the way I live my life. Now, can God deal that way with ordinary people? Ignatius would say yes. That given enough solitude and a time of focus and some help along the way, people can begin to understand how God works in their life. And they can understand that God is not, as God was with Mary, imposing, but inviting. I want to look at that a little bit more. We don't have a psychological portrait of Mary in the Gospels. That's not what they are about. But we know from other sciences and reflections on the human way of making decisions that it frequently enough is a process of coming to understand that has affections and memories and attractions. It's some shaking out of what the meaning might be and where it goes. That it's a process that, when you unpack it, is very sophisticated. It doesn't mean that you have to be educated professionally to understand that there's a psychological richness in your life. Every time we see a movie and we cry at a part that's sad, there's a strong process there. We're not crying just for the movie, we're crying about what we remember, what our history has been, what it is to be in sorrow. That's a pretty complex thing. It has to be. So what we're talking about in Mary's being overshadowed, take it to understand that every event of her life somehow was crystallized in the fact that you will be a mother. And so her question to this, whatever that meant, this emissary of divine presence through Gabriel, how can this be? I do not know a man, is that may well be, and I'm willing to listen to this attraction, this possibility, but I don't have any evidence to support it. But I don't have any evidence to support this. And that's when the angel says, but God will do this. God will come into your life and he will orient you to a direction so that from this time on, everything you are, everything you choose to be, will be governed by, is this what a good mother would do? Is this what a good mother would do? Then you can revisit in your own understanding of Luke's presentation why she treasured all these things